As far as the Sixers are concerned, obviously this means Joel Embiid gets more rest. The big fella is able to get a couple more days, rest that knee injury, and now instead of this series with the Celtics starting on this upcoming Saturday, the semifinals will start Monday.
But you mentioned Joel Embiid's health, the sprained knee. Speaking of player health, what about James Harden? He is not totally healthy. How close is he to 100%? And what can we expect from him moving forward?
See, I'm not sure because he claims he's perfectly fine. But when you watch that series with Brooklyn and you realize he had a really good series in terms of just his numbers, I think he averaged like 17, 8, and 7 or 17, 8, and 6, something like that. Those are really good numbers. But he shot, I think, like 34% from the floor overall. At the rim, he only shot 24% on layups. And that is kind of that kind of raises alarms a little bit. Even in the game 4, the clincher, I think he only shot 4 for 18. So it's just like you can get away with that against the Brooklyn Nets. You're not going to get away with that against the Boston Celtics. It's not going to happen. So I think Harden's health is definitely going to be something that is going to be worth keeping an eye on, obviously, along with Joel's. Like as this series moves forward, he looks good in what I've seen after practice. Obviously, as the media, we're not allowed to see practice, but from what we've seen, the shooting drills and things like that after practice, he looks fine. He's been shooting the 3 ball well. I think he's around 42.6% from 3. I think he shot against Brooklyn. So obviously, you'll take that. But his overall field goal percentage has got to go up, and obviously, he's got to get to the free throw line more as well.
Kai, if it turns out that Joel is not fully healthy or can't go, can the rest of this bunch pull this thing together and pull out a series?
Not against Boston. Not against Boston. I mean, I kind of don't really give the Sixers much of a shot against Boston, even if Joel was 100% healthy. I'm still taking the Celtics to win the series. But if Joel is going to be hobbled and he's going to be somewhere around 75 to 80%, then yeah, I give them no shot against Boston, just because I think the Celtics are deeper. I think they're a more experienced bunch, obviously. Like their core has been to the Eastern Conference Finals, I think, like 4 times. They've been to an NBA Finals now once together as a group. This team has gone deep into the playoffs, and they understand what it takes to kind of win at this level. Meanwhile, the Sixers, the only 2 guys on the roster who's really been past round 2 are PJ Tucker and James Harden. So I'm not really sure, like what to really make of this group, especially when you go up against a team like the Celtics. I don't really give them much of a shot.
Hey, Kai, Bill and I were talking about this right before you jumped on with us. Tyrese Maxey, he's been, pretty great most of the season. He's certainly had his moments in the playoffs, but for whatever reason, he has not played well against the Celtics. Are we going to see anything different from him?
There are I was actually thinking about that, and there are a couple of different things that kind of crossed my mind with that. I mean, Maxey during the regular season averaged 10 points in the 4 games against Boston. I think he shot 21.4% from 3. I think his field goal percentage was like 35.4% overall. Like those aren't Tyrese Maxey numbers.
Yeah.
A couple of things really crossed my mind. One of them was for 2 of those games, I think he was coming off the bench, right? And I think that was when he even mentioned that he was kind of going through some mental stuff. He went to go talk to his parents. He went to go talk to some people, try to get himself right again, which obviously he was able to down the stretch of the season and in round 1 against the Nets. And then another one was the last game, the one when Joel scored the 52. Tyrese did, he did get hit in the back. I think he said PJ Tucker it was like friendly fire, kind of hit him while they were going up for a rebound. So maybe that had something to do with the struggles. Another thing I thought about was the fact that Boston has so many perimeter defenders that they can throw at him, from Marcus Smart to Jaylen Brown to Jason Tatum to Derek White. Then you got their big men like Al Horford, Robert Williams III, both terrific defenders. So I'm curious to see how Tyrese kind of gets over that hump. Like if they were to play the Celtics, I think for me it would have to happen game 1. If he doesn't have a good game 1, then I don't think it's going to be a good series.
Well, Kai, I ask this to every basketball guy. Does Glenn Rivers have what it takes to manipulate this limited bench that he has and this starting group and actually win a series that's a big series?
I love how you called him Glenn.
There's only one Doc in Philly, and it ain't him.
That is fair. That is fair. Julius Erving. You know what I mean? He definitely owns the Doc name. I guess for me, listen, I think Rivers has done a phenomenal job. Well, I thought he did a phenomenal job last year, kind of navigating the Ben Simmons stuff and making sure that they were competitive, and then working James into things. This year, I think he's done a little bit better of a job of understanding that you can't have all bench lineups. you can't do it, especially in the playoffs. I'm curious to see how he handles the bench, though, against if it is the Celtics, just because George Niang has had his struggles against the Celtics during the regular season as well. How many minutes are you going to give DeAnthony Melton? How much ball handling pressure are you going to put on Melton? Another one is Jalen McDaniels. How is he going to match up against a Jaylen Brown or a Jason Tatum or Grant Williams, even, like any of those guys the Celtics can throw out there? And then, do you play Danuel House? Do you get a little more athletic and you throw House Jr. out there? So I'm curious to see how this all works out. Also, Paul Reed. Yeah. Paul Reed obviously had a terrific series against Brooklyn. I'm curious to see if he could do it against Boston. Because, listen, that Brooklyn team, give them credit, but to me, they kind of made the playoffs just because KD and Kyrie set them up very, very nicely before they got traded. After the trades, I think the Nets were a team under 500. Give them credit. They were able to squeak into the playoffs as a 6th seed, but I think over the course of a season, that roster is probably a play-in team at best. So you're going from a team like the Nets to a big step up in competition from them to the Celtics.
Hey, I know his teammates love PJ Tucker, but do the Sixers need to get more out of him as the playoffs move along?
I think so, especially against Boston, because PJ is going to do everything, like all of the little things, to make sure the Sixers are in a position to succeed and in a position to win these games. And I thought that he did a really good job of making those types of plays against the Nets. Against the Celtics, though, he's got to knock down these corner threes. I think in Game 4, or was it Game 3? I think overall, though, the 2 games in Brooklyn, I remember sitting up there at Barclays Center. I think he made like 1 corner 3. Again, you can get away with that against Brooklyn. You're not going to get away with it against Boston. Like against the Celtics, Philadelphia basically needs to kind of play near perfect basketball, especially on the road when you go into the TD Garden.
Another mystery on this team to me is Tobias Harris. He kind of was more of a star back in the day, and now he's the odd man out of the big 3. Kind of seems to play his role. At times he steps up, scores a bunch of points, and plays some really good games. Is he just a guy on this team now, or does he have the ability to really make things happen?
See, Tobias Harris is unique, right? Because we're talking about a guy, you just mentioned it, Bill, that he was a star. Now he's kind of been phased out of the big 3. Now he's kind of a 4th option. He's a very expensive 4th option, but I don't think you're going to find a better 4th option than Tobias Harris. But he's going to be another one that's going to have a microscope on him, because his round 2 production, whether it be last year against Miami, 2 years ago with Atlanta, his first playoff run with Toronto, against Toronto, I know everybody remembers that series. His numbers have just dipped considerably, in the second round compared to his production in the first round. So his production in this first round against Brooklyn was terrific.
Yeah.
Like the Sixers will take that. If the Sixers get that, hand them the Larry O'Brien trophy, because that's going to be a big difference throughout the whole run. But Tobias has shown in the past that every time the playoffs flip to round 2, those numbers they steeply decline. So I think he's going to be the X factor in this series for Philadelphia. If he's going to produce the way he did against the Nets, then the Sixers are going to have a very, very, very good chance at winning this series. But if not, then it's going to be deja vu all over again.
All right. Kai, I need to ask you about a fellow Sixers beat reporter. I've gotten the sense that you two are pretty tight, you and Keith Pompey. Keith's been on with us, I think, 12 times over the last 6 years, essentially twice a year, and we love having him on. I think I remember you posting about him last fall on Facebook, calling him the gold standard. Has he been something of a mentor for you?
That's the OG. No,
Yeah.
listen, that is my OG. I'll say this: the amount of wisdom that I have learned from Keith Pompey and everything has been absolutely incredible. Honestly, it's like I can't even put into words how important it has been. I appreciate the guy so much. I can't even say like enough good things like about Keith. Like that guy has continued to he took me under his wing like immediately. We first met back in I think 2019. Actually, no, I want to say like 2016 actually, when the Sixers, I went to Stockton University in South Jersey, and the Sixers came to Stockton for training camp while their facility was still being built in Camden. And I think I was a junior at the time, or a senior, I think, and I met Keith that day. And he kind of like from that standpoint, really from that point, took me under his wing. And I mean, he's been the definition of a mentor to me ever since. Like I love the guy. There's no bad things I could ever say about him.
Okay, so the $1 million question: you are not a Giants fan?
No. No, but I will say this: I'm not an Eagles fan either. So
as long as you're not a Giants or a Cowboys fan, we're good.
I am from Michigan originally, so I am a Detroit Lions fan.
There you go. There you go.
You're
the one.
Allow that.
You're the one.
Yes, the one Lions fan outside of the state of Michigan.
Kai, it's prediction time. Before you go, you mentioned you think the Celtics will beat the Sixers. So who do you think's going to the NBA Finals this year?
Before the season started, I said Celtics Warriors. I thought that we would get a rematch of that. But considering the fact that the Warriors can't win on the road to save their life, I am probably going to take Boston. I still think Boston comes out of the East, especially when you look at how Milwaukee's struggling with the Miami Heat.
Yeah.
And just how Jimmy Butler has continued to once again take his game to another level in the playoffs. So I'll probably say Celtics out of the East. At this point, I am going to rock with the Phoenix Suns. I think Chris Paul, Devin Booker's playing out of his mind. He's another one. Him and Jimmy Butler, to me, have been the two best players in these playoffs. And when you combine Kevin Durant with Devin Booker and the savviness and the wisdom of Chris Paul, very good bench, very good role players. DeAndre Ayton's playing well. I like the Suns a lot. So I'd probably say Boston and Phoenix.
All right.
Well, hey, Kai, before we let you go, let the viewers know where they can follow your work on all the different social medias you have going on and all that.
Well, I appreciate it. You guys can follow me on Twitter and Instagram, Kai_Carlin. That's KY_CARLIN. And you can always go to SixersWire.com and read all of my stuff over on there.
All right. Well,
thanks, Kai. This is great.
Kai, we appreciate you joining us. Appreciate your time, and let's do it again.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me on. I really appreciate it.